I'm Tori, and today I'm going to be discussing Grave Dance by Kalayna Price. This is the second book in the Alex Craft series, and I listened to the audiobook narrated by Emily Durante. Now, I really love this series, and I love this book too. It takes place in an amazing magical world, so if you haven't read these books, go read them and come back to hear my opinions. So I had just as much fun with this book as I did with the last book. I loved it. I thought it was really interesting that Alex is getting all these like fae traits now that she didn't have before, and I'm really curious to see what about the ritual at the end of the last book caused that to kind of awaken in her. It was interesting to me, now she can't lie, and that's a new development from last time, but even in the first book, she tended not to lie, and she still tended to do kind of the fae thing of saying true things that implied untrue things. So you could see that was kind of like a tendency, and then it grew in this book. And I will also be really interested to see if she can eat fairy food. She's been very careful about that and hasn't yet, but I feel like in one of the later books it'll probably be a thing, and we'll find out if she can eat fairy food or not. I loved her whole inheritance, and that she has a castle now that has a housekeeping brownie in it, and I would love to see more of the castle. And I think it'll be interesting if Holly isn't cured, then she'll maybe get to go live there, and we'll spend a lot of time all hanging out at the castle. The only downside is that Death can't go there, and it would be really fun if we could hang out with Death. Was interesting, in this book she kind of had two almost boyfriends, because in the first book, Death hadn't really expressed that much interest. He just mildly flirted. And then Phelan was keeping his distance too, except for the one night when he got drunk off of the fairy whatever. But then in this book, Death was definitely trying to start something, and then Phelan was pretty interested too. So it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out, because neither of them are really very available. Phelan is under the control of the Winter Queen, and she took him away again at the end of this book, and considering he had to break out of her dungeon after he went to go see her at the end of the last book, I feel like it'll be harder for him to get away. And then the whole ending of the book, was kind of saying, when soul reapers date mortals, it doesn't work out so well. So, that was kind of like a thing to say, oh yeah, that's why she can't be with Death. Though, I don't know, as long as you don't go around kidnapping people's souls and creating fake dragons, then I don't see what the problem is. They can just hang out, she can touch him, I don't really see what the problem is. As long as he doesn't, share trade secrets, he'll just treat it like he's a spy, There are certain things about my job that I can't tell you, and as long as you accept that, then we're fine, and we can have a happy, healthy relationship. I thought the whole mystery with the feet was really cool, and then at the end you realize, the book was called Grave Dance, and I figured, they just came up with random titles, but there actually was a dance that was killing people and leaving nothing but feet behind. So I was curious, it was all left feet. I was wondering what about the spell made it left feet more than right feet, but still interesting. I thought the constructs were fascinating, and you have to give credit to the Rogue Reaper and the Evil Witch. They were very creative, because they could have made anything. They could have just made boring things, but they made these gorgeous mythical creatures, so that was really fun, and it was fun to kind of see the constructs and watch Alex get better at defeating them, kind of. One thing I love about these books is that they surprise me. I was pretty sure that Rihanna was the Rogue Witch, and I was guessing that long before Alex started guessing it, and she wasn't, and I was so glad that the book surprised me, because it made sense for it to be the witch who had escaped from the dance. And, the timeline fits, and it all makes sense, and so I loved it that the book surprised me. The first book did too. At the end of the first book, they were trying to figure out who the last victim was going to be, and I was sure it was going to be Alex, but it was her sister instead. So I love it that this book manages to kind of have that misdirection, and it's not super obvious, and you're still just as shocked as Alex is when you find out what's going on. So I loved how much PC was involved in this book. It was so cute to have, Alex is running around on these crazy adventures, and she just got PC with her. She's fighting all these dragons and running around and being kidnapped to fairy courts, and there's PC, and I just love that so much. It kind of reminded me of the Rosie Maldone books, where she's off solving crimes, dragging her kids around with her, and it was the same sort of vibe as that. I think my favorite scene in the whole book was the scene where the creepy cult magic guy sends his people to kidnap Alex, and First of all, they go to kidnap her, and they're grabbing her, and she's like, "Hey, watch the dog!" And they look down, and there's there's PC in her purse right there, and they're just so shocked, like, "Okay, why would you have a dog? I don't know what to do. I just have simple instructions to kidnap people. I'm not used to thinking this hard." And so these poor little mercenary goons, they recover from the shock of the dog, and they start dragging Alex into the car. And then she's having this conversation with all these people who aren't there, and she's hunched up like there are 3 other people in the back of the car with her, and she's talking to them, and it must be very disconcerting. You have this simple job. Your boss hired you to kidnap someone, and she's not behaving normally, and it must just make you so uncomfortable. And I just love that. She's back there having a conversation with all the Reapers, and at one point she's like making out with Death and all this stuff, and then the people who kidnapped her are just kind of like, "Okay, who is this crazy person, and why doesn't she act like a normal kidnapped person should?" And that was so great. And you were never too concerned, because she wasn't too concerned. The Reapers weren't too concerned, like, "Oh yeah, we'll see you at our appointment. You may be in the process of being kidnapped, but you'll be out of it by then. Not a big deal." And I love that scene so much. Everything about it was just so great and so hilarious. It was interesting spending a lot of time in Fairy. I didn't like it quite as much as the other parts of her world, and I don't think you're supposed to. Fairy's supposed to be a little off-putting and uncomfortable, and you don't know what the rules are. It does help that Fae can't lie, so then, if you get them to tell you things, you just have to think about what the loopholes are, so that is helpful and makes it a little bit more comfortable. It was really interesting to see the Nightmare Realm, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because I bet more stuff will happen there. It was interesting to meet some of Alexis's family, so that'll be interesting. And I look forward to in the next book, I hope she gets better at her plane weaving skills, and it'll be really interesting to see what happens, because in this book, she started out very close with both Death and Phelan, and now Phelan's been taken by the Winter Queen, and I'm guessing it'll be very hard to get him back, and all the Reapers are being very strict with Death and saying, "See what just happened? You cannot date a mortal. It's not okay." So it'll be interesting to see what happens, and I cannot wait to read the next book.